let's say we're talking to 1,000 people, okay? 1,000 people. And I said, how many of you know a toxic person that you've ever worked with? I'm willing to bet 997 hands would say, yeah, I've, I've worked with a toxic person. No question about it. And if I said, how many of you would classify yourself as a toxic person? No one would raise their hand. Zero. And so what's interesting is while there's so many people using the word toxic work environment and toxic leadership, what's interesting is if you were to promote the person that thinks that they work in a toxic environment, they wouldn't call themselves a toxic leader.
Welcome to the Prosper Brief, a show dedicated to elevating the future of the food service and hospitality industry. I am your host, James Rogers. Today on the Prosper Brief, I'm joined by Ryan Leake, best-selling author, executive coach, one of the most sought-after transformational speakers in the country. Every year, Ryan equips over 25,000 leaders from Fortune 100 companies to elite pro sports teams with the tools to grow, lead, and thrive. You may have seen Ryan first on a Good Morning American episode or the Today Show, where his wedding and his proposal of his wife actually went viral, and his story made him a national sensation, and that's produced an incredible career that we're going to learn a little bit about today. But he's also an author. He's authored a book, Chasing Failure, the Wall Street Journal bestseller, Leveling Up, and his latest release, recent last week or a couple weeks ago, How to Work with Complicated People. Yeah. He's going to share tactics, and he's going to help us tackle one of the toughest leadership challenges, navigating relationships with empathy. Ryan's here today to talk about what really matters when we lead, starting with ourselves and expanding to how we show up for others. Let's get into it.
What would you do if I told you that the difference between good and great when it comes to customer service and leadership isn't this massive overhaul, but it's indeed a game of inches? I'm Ryan Leake, and at Accelerate, I'm going to be bringing you the game of inches, 6 rules for winning in customer service and leadership. Success in business and leadership isn't about making this giant leap. It's about making small, consistent moves that I believe separate the best from the rest. And in our session together, we're going to be breaking down 6 game-changing rules that are going to help you build stronger relationships, exceed expectations, and lead with impact. You're going to walk away with knowing a few things. Number one, you're going to walk away with knowing how to create unforgettable customer experiences. Secondly, you're going to learn the leadership habits that truly drive lasting success. And thirdly, you're going to learn some small moves that I believe turn ordinary into extraordinary. If you want to win, not just today, but every day, this session is for you. Join me at Accelerate, and let's close the gap between where you are and where you could be, 1 inch at a time. We'll see you there.
Ryan, welcome. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man. It's a privilege.
Yeah. Tell us a little more, just to we want to get to know you a little bit. Tell us a little bit more about that wedding. What happened?
Well, I overheard my wife tell a friend she thought it would be cool to get engaged and married on the same day. And so I guessed, and I started planning a surprise wedding behind her back over the course of 2 years. And so almost 12 years ago now, getting ready to celebrate 12 years of marriage, got down on one knee and said, Amanda, will you marry me? She said, yes. I said, just kidding. Will you marry me today? And we opened up a lounge room door, and about 85 of our family and friends were standing in there with the sign that said today. And so filmed the whole thing. We were engaged for a solid 11 hours, and we put it up on YouTube, and it got quite a bit of attention, over a decade ago, and that led to being on a couple of different TV shows, and which led to the Chasing Failure documentary that you just mentioned, where I tried out for an NBA team and failed. And it's amazing how long it took me to get a different perspective on failure. About 2 years after that, I realized, like, wait a minute, I think failure is good for us. And so I became a failure enthusiast and started sharing that message more and more. And it just resonated with a lot of people. I had a friend say it like this once. He said, people admire perfection from a distance, but they can't relate to it. And that always stuck with me. It made me think, wait a minute, can my mistakes, can my setbacks, can my failures actually help people more than my successes? It's like, yeah, I think it can.
Mhm. That's good. And aren't we all just approximating perfection, really? Like even Kobe Bryant, right? Who
Yeah,
have you had a chance to meet,
of
right?
course. Of course. Yeah, I think we're all, you know, I think you're only failing if you're failing to learn from your fails, from your failures. I think if you're always looking for lessons, it really comes down to a mindset. I think everything is that. Your perspective on just about everything, I think, determines how far you can go in your life.
Mm, I love it. Well, you've kind of shared a little bit about it, but you've had a unique journey.
Mm,
You're a filmmaker, you're speaker, author, you're leadership coach. You're dealing with folks in boardrooms trying to help inspire folks to take risks, to try things, to learn how to deal with
yeah,
difficult people sometimes. There's a lot of fun work you're doing. And you shared a little bit about that, even trying out for an NBA team. And I got to see you and Jeff Hornacek on the court. You're making that a run up and down the
yeah,
court, and it's pushing yourself, right? Just incredible story.
yeah.
Um, what would your 12-year-old self think about where you are and what you're doing today? What do you think?
Let's see, 12-year-old me, I was excited to not have to order off the kids' menu anymore. I felt like I was becoming a man. 12-year-old me would think, um, I don't know, it's a good question. I think 12-year-old me would be impressed, is my guess. You know, I was talking with a friend of mine, John Maxwell, yesterday, and we were just saying how the more successful you become, the more you laugh at what your goals were a decade ago. And so I remember when I graduated college, I sat with a financial advisor. I don't even know why I needed one because I wasn't making any money. But I remember him asking me what my life goal was. Like my goal in life was to make 80 grand a year. That was my goal in life. And he laughed in my face. And I was like, what's so funny? He just said, you need bigger goals, and it's just amazing. So I would guess that my 12-year-old self, you know, would, uh, my 12-year-old brain probably would be exploding about now, given all the things that, I believe God's given us an opportunity to do. So, um, I don't think my 12-year-old self would have ever imagined what I get to do every day now. So I pinch myself, honestly. Honestly, I'm 38. 37-year-old me is impressed. It's like, what? So I don't even got to go back to 12. It's like I can go back to 6 months ago and I would be like, what just happened? So, I'm just very grateful for the opportunities that I have to be able to impact a lot of people. So, not a lot of people get that opportunity ever. I get that opportunity like every other day. So, I really do pinch myself often.
That's so fun. Yeah, I got to see several of your. I mean, you got a lot of content out there. It's not hard to find something to watch, and got to hear
Hmm.
several different mediums of your life. The chasing failure video that you did several years back, and also some sermons that you've given at local churches. I mean, you're in a lot of different types of work, right? And yeah, it's
Sure.
it's fun to watch it. I'm sure it's very meaningful for you.
Yeah, I mean it's meaningful work for sure.
Mhm. Well, let's dive in. Speaking of your books, you've got several books, but there's two I really want to kind of guide our discussion with today. And the first one was your book, Leveling Up, and
Mm,
there's 12 questions that you weave into
mm,
this organized thought. And each one of them is impactful. It's things like, how am I managing my time, and how do you do that?
Sure,
And there's a lot of rubber meets the road in that book that's very helpful.
sure.
I wanted to ask you the question. We don't probably have enough time to unpack all 12 of those. What are a few that you feel are like the major themes for you, the ones that maybe have challenged you the most, that you've had to learn the hard way, or what are a few that are the most meaningful from that list of 12 for you?
One would be, what's it like to be on the other side of me? I think it's just a self-awareness question. I just don't think we ask ourselves that question enough. I ask it almost every day, and a lot of times I don't like the answer, specifically with my children. Like sometimes I'm like, am I just being so hard on them as I'm trying to uh, be the kind of father that helps them become men? It's also like, man, sometimes I just feel like a drill sergeant, and it's just like on the other side of me, it may not be as enjoyable. I'm like, man, I wish I was my own daddy. I wish I could go to NBA. I never went to an NBA game as a kid. It's like we had season tickets. You know what I mean? It's like you have the polar opposite upbringing of me, but it's like so sometimes I'm thinking you got a good deal here. But it's like actually on the other side of me, it can be I don't know, maybe high expectations, hard to live up to, and I think about for my wife. I think about for the people that work for me. I think people that are always trying to get a hold of me while I'm either on stage or on the plane, and maybe my answers are short, and they feel like they're annoying me in some way, shape, or form. I started noticing people started putting the same line in all the emails to me, and they all didn't know each other. Hey, I know you're busy, but and I'm like, why is everybody saying like I began to think like man, maybe on the other side of me, people feel rushed. People feel like they have to. So that question is never going to go away from me. So that's been a game changer. The other question I think is super important for me personally is what's my definition of success? That's huge. That's huge because if you have the wrong definition of success, it will absolutely ruin your life. And you might actually accomplish it and find out that the end of that rainbow ain't as great as you thought it was going to be. And so I've had the privilege of meeting some extremely wealthy people who were extremely unhappy. And I was meeting with an executive coaching client, and it was fascinating. Uh, he said, "Hey, I want to come to Dallas and meet with you." I said, "Sure." I said, "What day you want to come?" He said, "I'm going to come next Thursday." I said, "Great, man. We'll host you. We'll pick you up. What time's your plane land?" He said, "What time do you want to meet?" I was like, "Well, let's. I've got the whole afternoon. So, what time you land?" He said, "Oh, I'll land around 11:45 if we're meeting at noon." And I said, "Okay." I said, "So you want me to pick you up at Dallas Love? You want me to pick you up at DFW? Like, you Southwest? What do you?" He said, "No, I have my own plane." I said, "Oh, so there's levels to this thing. All right, so you just gonna land whenever you want to land. My bad. All right, that's cool. That's fine." And I remember sitting with him, and we had a great conversation, and he's amassed a serious amount of wealth. And at one point in that conversation, he looked at me and he said, "Ryan, I'm proud of what we've built, but if I'm honest, I think I would have worked a little less." He said, "If I'm honest, I think I would have spent a little bit more time with my kids." He's like I'm uber successful, but I don't know that I need it to be uber successful. What's wrong with just being successful? He's like, so he's looking back going, you might envy some of the perks of his lifestyle and of his hard work, but sitting with him, he was looking back going, I wish I would have invested more in some of those relationships that I had. And it was interesting. I was actually with him yesterday, and just looking at his life now and looking at how his priorities have shifted on the other side of the rainbow, so to speak. It's like, you know what, as I'm 38 years old and building my business and making my mark, whatever that means, and you just kind of go, at some point you tap the brakes a little bit to go, what is my definition of success? And for me, my definition of success is that or part of it, I should say, is that the people that know me best respect me the most. I would hate for strangers to love my brand, but my friends are like, he's never around. He doesn't even call us. He's not the person you think he is. I would want my friends to go, y'all don't actually even know this dude. He's better. And so I think what's my definition of success is it's just a massive question that I think all of us should be asking, and it helps us to understand why we're working so hard in the first place.
Yeah, and also maybe to isolate the things that we should not fail at. Like you got two
Sure.
boys, you know, can't fail
No
there.
question about it.
Hmm.
No, yeah, you don't want to
You
do
will
that.
fail, but
No.
not the major failure, right? Yeah,
Sure, sure, sure.
yeah. What else you got? You got any other diamonds there you think are worth chat about?
I mean, I could talk about any of those 12 questions, you know. It's like how much time you got, you know. I don't know, you know, how we got quite a few questions, so I don't
Yeah.
want to take up all our time, you know.
Well, I'll say just for one more, I think one of the ones that really resonates with me, and I think is probably the most challenging for at least the American culture, maybe all cultures, and for men especially,
Sure.
is who knows who I really am. Kind of what you even
For
said
sure.
is like to the people who know me best, what do they think
Hmm.
about me, right? And even in the
Yeah.
workplace, am I the same person at work as I am here and there at home? And
Yeah.
that's a tough one. That's a really, I mean, it's the last question on the list.
Yeah.
But that's transparency, right?
Man, it's huge. I my corporate superpower is that people tell me how they're really doing. People are very honest with me. And I'm amazed at what people have gone through on a Monday and will show up to work on a Tuesday. It's astounding. I was talking to a friend earlier who was telling me a story about how one of their best friends who works for Microsoft, and her grandfather died, who she was very close to. And at the funeral, her father cussed her out and then went to work the next day. Now, if you're walking around Microsoft, there is never a day where you're thinking to yourself, "Man, I bet somebody got emotionally slaughtered yesterday on their darkest day." You're just not thinking that. You're not thinking that at all. And so it just makes me more of an empathetic leader person to just think you just don't know what people are walking through the doors with. And so, but you do know what you're walking through the door with. And so, how do we become those kind of leaders that have the kind of vulnerability that just say, hey, you know what? I'm not always going to be at my best. I'm always going to give my best, but sometimes my best is very little because that's all I have to give. And to make some space for other people's human. So I again, that's why I think that's a vitally important question for sure.
You mentioned that that people tend to open up to you, especially they feel comfortable. Do you think that your transparency produces that or helps to produce that result?
I think so. I think my natural communication style is very personable. It is very, um, I don't cite or quote a lot of other people. I don't, typically my stories are mine. They're with my friend at Microsoft. You see what I'm saying? Like there is very much a human element of I'm in the trenches with the audience. Does that make sense? So I don't I again I'm not against sharing stories from history or pointing to a case study or doing anything of that nature, but that's just never really been my communication style. And so I think as I share stories from my life or you know at a corporate event, I, I don't feel like I don't want to say I'm just so unique. But I will say this: it it's not going to happen very often from my vantage point. You could totally disagree and maybe you see it from a different perspective. But you're not going to hear many people get on the stage and go, I think I could be a better parent. Parenting's hard. And I think on the other side of me, it's actually pretty like I just don't think you're going to hear people talk like that. I don't think people are going to get up there and go, I think I could be a better husband. I just I just don't think that that happens very often. Again, I'm not saying I'm the unicorn. I'm the only person in the world who does that because that's not true. But it's pretty rare that you can introduce vulnerability from the stage to say, man, it's man, there's some things in my life that I wish were different. There's some things in my life that are very difficult. There's some things in my life that scare me. There's some things, you know. So I think when you're sharing those things, people naturally open up to go. I mean, dude, I can't tell you how many times I've spoken for 60 minutes and I'll share one story about my dad and they'll be bawling their eyes out. And it's like, the story about your dad. And I'm just like, anything else? I mean, I just talked about a book for 60 minutes. Anything else that value you like? Um, but it's amazing because you know, essentially I talk humanity. And I think when humans are allowed to be human, they can be very, very effective. But if you're asking humans to be robots, well, they're crappy robots. And so you might get a lot of productivity out of them, but it doesn't mean that they're going to want to be there for a long time.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think people want to be known as themselves, but they also sometimes don't feel comfortable to be themselves, especially in a place, not to bag on Microsoft, but a corporation like that, where there's consequences to how you're viewed, right? How do you, where is that? And obviously we know we can't, you can't run into a meeting with 400 people and be like, "Hey, let me tell you about my horrible experience this weekend." That's not going to work. But what's the line? What's the balance? How do we bridge that gap of injecting authenticity and transparency and who we really are, our real face, taking the mask off, if you will, but also at the same time manage, relating professionally and really accomplishing the goal of allowing other people to be their real selves on your team, to say the truth, right? To tell you what's real in their life, but also maintaining like, hey, this is a job. We got to get our job done. We can't. What's your thoughts on that?
It is a tension to manage, no question about it. I think I think awareness is everything. Not, you know, there's obviously a lot of talk about self-awareness, but I think especially if we're talking leaders, I think being aware of body language of your team, if somebody's off, you know, to be able to go towards my friend at Microsoft and go, "Hey, you're here. I see you're here, but there's a part of you that's not. You okay? Hey, yeah, my grandfather died." Now, does she go as far as to say, "Oh, and my father cussed me out at the funeral"? I actually think you don't share that unless you're close. But to say, "Hey, my grandfather died and he was really close to me," I think in that moment, a leader's job is to go, I'm terribly sorry to hear that. Bonus point if you send some sort of bereavement package to their home. They'll never forget it. They'll be the best leader they've ever had immediately, even if you actually suck as a leader. The second thing I think that you could do is to say, "Hey, you know, I'm really sorry to hear that." At some point, you could even go, "What was the greatest lesson your grandfather taught you?" You see, now we're just we're moving past the, okay, did you get your work done? Cool. We're pushing past the familiar, and I'm not even asking you to share some deep dark thing, but I'm giving you the opportunity to grieve. Hey, he sounds like a great person. Again, I'm really sorry to hear that. I mean, you're leaving space for honor and what I like to call a pause. you're able to press pause long enough to give them the opportunity to breathe and feel that moment. And dude, I can't tell you how many women I've heard from who've had miscarriages and go to work the next day and aren't going to broadcast that, don't want to talk about it. Um, but I think part of this is just creating that, psychologically safe environment where people can they've got permission to just not be robots, to be off, share you want to create an environment where they can share but don't have to. But you want to create a safe enough environment for people to go, man, it's been rough. It's been a rough couple days. Um, you think about just things that go on with children that can just zap a parent's energy to show up and give their best at work. And so I think just having an awareness of it. There was a study done. I don't have it off the top of my head, the exact uh, group that did the study. And, everybody always says 40% of whatever you say, whatever, and it just sounds true. But there was a study done, and a reputable study it was, where it said that when leaders, 63% of the time, when leaders recognize their team's pain, this was specifically around change because people are having a hard time with organizational changes, or people are having a hard time with technological changes or economical changes, change. And the study was done where it says if the leader just recognizes, hey, this is hard for you, 63% of the time, people just get back to work. They just wanted to know, you see it, you recognize my difficulty. They don't actually need you to change it back. They don't actually need you to fix anything. They just need you to recognize, hey, I'm having a hard time right now. And for you to be the kind of leader that says, man, I see it. Man, I get that. I get that you were on this team. You got very familiar with this team, very familiar with these systems, and then we change it on you, man. And yes, this is where the business is headed, no question about it. But I realize that's hard for you. Some people, their only friends are at work, and then you put them on a new team. It's like you threw them into a middle school lunchroom all over again, starting from scratch. And so for you to be able to recognize, hey, I realize you got some strong relationships in this other department. You're incredibly valuable to us, and we feel like you're going to add so much value to this next this new department or this new initiative, this new project. And hey, we recognize, like, hey, that's going to be a challenge for you. So just know, hey, we're in your corner. Just the recognition alone is often enough, more times than not, enough for that person to go, okay, they know. As long as they know, they have it within themselves to get over it and keep it moving. But if that leader doesn't recognize it, there's always going to be this internal tension of, I don't really want to work for you because you don't know what it's like to actually work here. You don't know what it's like. You're announcing the change, but the change doesn't actually impact you. It impacts me. The domino hits me. You're the one who pushed it. And so then there's resentment, and it's all unspoken. But if that leader goes, hey, I realize this domino hit you pretty hard, man, I see it. I see it. I just want you to know we didn't make that decision lightly. We do firmly believe it is the best decision moving forward for the overall organization, and we believe it's the best decision for you. We think you're going to get better. We value. We see leadership opportunities for you in the future through this path. Like you're going down that line, and I think that's very helpful. Um, so I think it's having some difficult conversations around there, but it is a tension to manage, and it is. I don't believe there's a one size fits all. I believe it is a case by case situation where you're able to really pull people to the side and go, hey, I realize we just had a meeting, but I think the meeting after the meeting is the most important meeting. And so being able to pull somebody to the side and check in with them and just say, hey, are you okay? Even if they don't tell you what's wrong, you did your job. Hey, are you okay? Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Hey, are you sure? Yeah, why are you asking? Hey, I'm just making sure. I'm just checking in on you. I want to make sure that you're good. Yeah, I'm good, boss. All right. Well, if you're not, I just wanted to let you know it's okay to not be okay. So so you've given them multiple opportunities to be vulnerable, but you're not forcing it. Like they don't have to tell you anything. But if they feel like they can trust you, you'd be surprised what they'll tell you.
That's good. Yeah, people, I think ultimately they want to know that you care, right? And that
Yeah,
you're not just checking a box, and people want to feel heard, even if that doesn't result in them getting their way, that
yeah,
people care enough to at least address the proverbial elephants in the room, right? And to
yeah,
give
for
real
sure.
talk. I think that's a, transparent, real honesty. I read a book one time, and uh, it talked about a leader who didn't tell the truth about the performance of the business, right? Which that's never happened before,
Mm,
right? And then the employees
sure,
later on were like, when the business was falling apart, were like, "What the heck," And the whole point of the story was tell the truth about the performance of the business because people will run through
totally,
walls for you to help you save the business. But if you don't tell, then they
totally,
don't know, they can't help, and all that stuff we know, right? But it's
totally.
there's this like multifaceted, multidimensional. Sometimes it's psychological safety on do I tell you if my dad, you know, made me feel horrible yesterday, and sometimes it's
Totally.
where am I going in this company, right? Like
Yep.
what's in it for me for running through that wall for you, right?
Totally.
Mhm.
Totally.
Let's transition because you got a new book, and I'll be
Got a new
honest, I
book.
haven't the whole thing. It's
It
very
was it
exciting.
just came out, so I
It's
can't have
amazing
too
though.
crazy of expectations for everybody, you know. But
But I'm getting there. I'll get through
yeah,
it. But
yeah,
I love it so far. And,
that's great.
basically it kind of goes along with what we were just talking about, but it's when it doesn't, it's like how do you deal with the boss that doesn't do these things, right? How do you deal
Yeah,
with the employee that's having that hard time and they're reacting or acting out in a way that's not really productive for you, and it kind of even goes back to your self-awareness point. They're really interlocking ideas, right? Is
right.
how do you handle these situations? And so um what inspired you to write this? Like, I know you're kind of in this world, but why now? Why this book right now for you?
Well, I think in the world we live in, I think we have lost the art of really just being able to talk to one another. I think with all of the digital enhancements of the world, we actually end up talking to one another a whole lot less than we used to. And whether it's Slack, whether it's email, whether it's text messaging, whether it's Zoom, the digital interface that you and I find ourselves engaging with on a daily basis, I think we've lost that art of being able to have engaging conversations. And so what I think often stems from that is whenever there is some important issues that we want to talk about, it is much easier now more than ever to simply state my opinion on the internet and just let it be. I'm upset. Here's my article. Y'all need to change. Goodbye.
Please, no comments.
Yeah, but and then it's like, and so I started to just notice, like, man, like, we don't, people are very, like, they have very strong opinions that they don't know how to talk with their boss or colleagues about because they don't have the tools to do so. And so the book is very strategic in the sense of it's called How to Work with Complicated People. Let me tell you the book that people wish that I would write. How to Change Complicated People. That's what they really want. In fact, I'm willing to bet some people bought the book hoping that's what I would give them. You're gonna be vastly disappointed because that's not what the book's about. No, the book is about what do you do when they won't change? No, you change. I didn't say you acquiesce. I didn't say that you bend over backwards. I didn't say you become a welcome mat. No, 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 no. I say you change your strategies for how you engage somebody that you deem complicated. And the goal is to work with these people. Dare I say thrive with these people. Because if you can only work well, if you can only thrive, if you can only give your best when you are surrounded by like-minded, supportive people who share your communication style and work ethic, if that's the only time we get the best you when there's sameness, then let's just be honest. You're not that valuable to this organization. But if you can work with people who don't think like you, who don't share your same beliefs, who don't even share your same values, but you can sit across from them and learn about those people, well, guess what? You can sell to people who are different than you. You can host people that are different than you. You can get subscribers that are different than you. And so when you think about some of the biggest brands in the world, they're not sitting around going, well, we only want people to buy our products. Who? Well, think like us. Share our same values. No, it's not true at all. They're going, no, how can we sell to everybody? Well, imagine if you were the kind of person that says, well, for us to sell to everybody, wouldn't we have to work with all kinds of people that, don't always see things the way that we do? Obviously, there's some company values that they need to share, but at the same time, I think that there's something about having somebody on the team that just brings a different lens and a different perspective than you do, that experience allows you to work with almost anyone. Now, there's a whole chapter in the book on boundaries and what do you do with that person that's just impossible. So I'm not advocating for, yeah, the nearly. I'm not advocating for, a toxic situation, but here's what's interesting. Here's what's interesting. You can pull, let's say we're talking to 1,000 people, okay? 1,000 people. And I said, how many of you know a toxic person that you've ever worked with? I'm willing to bet 997 hands would say, yeah, I've I've worked with a toxic person. No question about it. And if I said, how many of you would classify yourself as a toxic person? No one would raise their hand. Zero. And so what's interesting is while there's so many people using the word toxic work environment or toxic leadership, what's interesting is if you were to promote the person that thinks that they work in a toxic environment, they wouldn't call themselves a toxic leader. They would just call it a promotion and they would just continue working. And so I push back a little bit on some of these terms that we've prescribed to certain environments that is just going, I don't think any toxic person knows it. Also, I don't think any toxic person is trying to be. I don't think any toxic person is waking up going, you know what I think would be a good idea? If I would to just make other people's life miserable. I think that's a plan. Let's go do it. Yeah, you know what? I think my ambition is getting the worst of me, and I actually think I'm going to undercut this other person that works for me. And you know what I've decided to do? I think I'm going to take credit for their work today. Yeah, that's my plan. Yeah, I can't wait for that meeting. So I can just slip in there, take credit for the work and get the sale, and then that person's just going to be screwed. I I don't I think we assign malice to people who aren't that smart to be able to even put that plan together. I think people are just selfish, and out of their selfishness comes toxic behavior. But I don't think anybody's waking up and whatever. It is incredibly difficult to see toxic in the mirror, and so that's where it's the heart of this book is to say, hey, I want you to be able to move towards people. I want to give you some strategies on how to work with people that are even difficult, and starting with the realization that, well, if you were toxic, how would you know? That's a very, very difficult pill to swallow. Even somebody that would say, man, I was in a toxic relationship for 2 years, would not say, but I was the toxic one. Do you see? Like, nobody, you've never heard anybody say that. They'll say, yeah, I was in a toxic relationship, but you're like, for you to be in a toxic relationship, you do realize what that means about you. And guess what? You have a job. So could it be that you're a toxic person? It's like, nobody would say that. But I think if we start the conversation with, man, you know what? I realize that there's some things about me that aren't easy to work with. And I have to wonder if there's not somebody that works with me right now that's giving me grace and they just haven't told me about it.
Yep. And that kind of goes back to that transparency, right? Is, hey,
Absolutely.
and the self-awareness of, hey, here are some areas I probably am a little toxic and I need to work on, and how can I do that? But also to, what your point
Yeah.
is, how do I invite that feedback so that I can get better and so we can level up, right? It's in your level up book about feedback and having
Right.
kind of the 360 style feedback loop from people that you trust and that aren't going to tell you what you want to hear, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's easy to prescribe something extreme to people that aren't us, like the word toxic.
Hmm.
But I would never tell someone to say, yeah, you should see the toxic in you. I would say, no, you should see the difficult in you. You should see the challenging in you. Toxic is such a, man, it's an
Okay.
extreme word. I would never want anyone to say that about themselves,
Mm.
but yet we say it about other people.
Yeah.
We toss that word and words like it around as very light. And I'm like, that's a very serious word that I would never want anyone to say about me.
Mm.
And so I think it's just, again, having that level of self-awareness, I think is very important.
Yeah. That's great. Uh, let me ask you this. What are the most common ways leaders unintentionally contribute, do you think? What are the things people should be looking out for, and how can they course correct, from your experiences?
In what way? When it comes to working with complicated people?
Yeah, well, when we're working, and like, what are, as a leader, a lot of the people that watch our shows are in various leadership roles. Like, what are ways that are the classic
Mm,
things that people should be aware of? Maybe if you're not convinced that you potentially might be one of those people that is the villain sometimes, a word you've used,
yeah.
or not the
Well,
full on villain, but the person that's not always the
yeah.
worst.
Well, I can tell you this in the world of consulting, okay, in the world of coaching, the inside, it's not really a joke because it's true. Um, but the insider lingo, if you put a bunch of consultants and executive coaches in the same room, they would say they have CEOs or C-suite executives who hired them to help them with culture. And what they would say, if they were honest, is the CEO is the problem with the culture, but they can't see that. And they're not paid to say that. But if you get drinks with an executive coach, you get drinks with a consultant, they'll tell you the truth. They'll say, listen, I know they're paying me to fix other people, but the other people, when I actually talk to the other people, it starts from the top and works its way down. And so I think that self awareness piece is just massive. The second thing I would say is every leader I know believes they are a clear leader. They think that they speak with clarity. They believe that everything they say makes sense. It does not. That is the hardest. It's just like I'm saying it as clear as day. It's like, yeah, but the one thing leaders can often misunderstand is just because you said it doesn't mean they heard it. Like some leaders think, I'm in charge. I said it in the meeting. Now, everyone needs to just go and do what I just said. They don't even know what you just said. For example, yesterday I was teaching about 2,000 leaders. I was teaching them how to connect with people that had just been in the organization, let's say a year or less. I was just giving a very practical example. I said, if there's somebody in your organization that's been there for, 18 months or less, year or less, once you do your meeting, I want you to pull them to the side and I want you to ask them this question. Is there any acronym that we use all the time that you actually don't know what it means? Is there any acronym that we use all the time that we think is common lingo and we think everybody knows that if you're honest, you actually don't know? I guarantee you they're gonna be like, actually, I don't know what ESL stands for. I can't tell you how many pre-event calls I've done with clients. I do 120 events a year. And I'll ask them all the same questions. I can't tell you how many times they have used an acronym. And I'll say, hey, Paul, sorry, I hate to interrupt you. What does that stand for? I can't tell you how many times they've gone, you know what? We use it so much, I don't actually know what it stands for. I know I know who I'm talking about when I say ESLs, but I don't actually know what ESL stands for. Or I watch them go, it stands for uh, executive uh, executive sales leader. I think I'm pretty sure, but they run our territories. We just call them ESL. It's like even they are struggling, and they've worked there for 15 years. And so, especially you start getting into healthcare, you start getting into food. It's like they've got so many acronyms that uh, they think it's common lingo, but it's like, man, you just got to think about the people who just got here. They may not know exactly what you're talking about. And so, I think leaders' communication, it feels clear. They could even say, "Look at the email. I said it right here." I say, "Yeah, but you're assuming they read your email. It's a massive assumption. What makes you think, well, I'm their boss? Of course they read my emails. They skim your emails. It doesn't mean that they read your emails and that they're paying attention to every single word.
It's because there's not enough time. You know, there's not enough time to read everything perfectly. It's not personal, right? It's not rebellious.
And and we all have our email fatigue. We all have the emails. Like once we see the length of them, we make a decision if we're gonna read. We go, oh, oh no, 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 this is I'm gonna do this later. Like you're just and everybody's threshold's a little bit different, but you can just I mean, I'm a terrible email reader. I'll respond to two of the questions. They'll be like, well, you didn't answer the third. My bad. I didn't see it. Well, that's because I skimmed it. Your email was very long. That's not a you problem. It's a me problem. But nevertheless, to assume that's what a lot of leaders do. A lot of mistakes that they make, not knowing it, is they just assume everybody's just underlining and highlighting their emails. It's like that's not happening. No, you got to assume that they're skimming. You have to assume that they don't fully understand the mission, the vision, the values, the strategy. It's got to be crystal clear. Crystal clear. Other big mistake I see leaders making unknowingly is they will often bring their best ideas to a meeting, and then the rest of the room is like, well, what are we supposed to do now? Are we here to just make your ideas happen? Or are we a team that the best leaders don't have the best ideas? The best leaders are the people that can bring the best ideas out of their team. When you can spark creativity, when you can ask the right question. For example, I love being as practical as we possibly can. If you go into a meeting and you say, what's the most annoying thing our customers have to deal with every single day, and how can we remove it? What's the what's their chief complaint? What's the thing that's irritable? What's the thing that, man, if we could wave a magic wand and change this for our customers, for our clients, our patients, it doesn't matter what the industry is. If we could remove this layer, like it would change our business forever. What would that thing be? Just let everybody talk. You might already have an answer to the question, but it's now a discussion. It's not a directive. It's now a, well, I'll tell you, I saw this on Twitter from one of our people that were on our airplane. I noticed this. What did you guys notice? Instead of coming in and saying, "Hey, I've been hearing on Twitter, this is what's going on our airplanes. We need to change it immediately." That's reactive. You're just reacting, and now everybody's just scrambling, trying to just do what you told them to do. But when you spark creativity to go, wait a minute, you're actually going to find out that there's things that are annoying for the people you serve every day, and you didn't even know about it. Well, now you know. And in fact, the thing that they share might be way bigger than the thing that you actually have. And so you actually might put that on the back burner and say, that's another meeting. There's actually quite a few irritants, quite a few hurdles that our customers have that I was unaware of, but now I know. And I didn't have to be the hero. Somebody else brought that idea. And now we've got a collaborative. Now we're actually leading. I think when a leader does that, I think they truly are building a team, and now people feel like they're actually on it. They feel like they're contributing to the business, and that we're consistently getting better. Or the question could be, what's something that our team members find annoying that if we could remove it overnight, it would instantly make their job better? Let everybody answer that question. Wow. Whatever you hear in that moment, it's just like, we could be the best place in the world to work if we just remove these three things. And you might go, man, well, option number three, we can't do a whole lot about. Option number two, it costs $1 billion to change. But option number one, it might hurt our ego, but I actually think we could do that. I actually think we could make some adjustments. And so I think you just spark a conversation that people aren't on the outskirts. They're not just there to just serve you. Now they feel like they're part of a real team.
Yeah, and also letting them self-discover a little bit, even if you have the
For sure.
answer. Maybe them learning that on their own is better for the business long term. Um, and definitely
Totally.
for the culture potentially, right? And you might learn something you didn't know
Yeah.
too, like you said.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that, and obviously a lot of great work and a lot of thought that's gone into your work so far, and obviously, I excited to see more of what you come up with over the years, right? And I'm a fan, so
Yeah,
thank
for
you
sure.
for your contributions there, and I've learned a lot already. I appreciate it, but I
Yeah.
want to share one more thing before we disembark here in a second. I know you
Sure.
got a busy day ahead of you. I wanted to say I saw you speak last August, and you shared something that probably the thing that if somebody's like, "What did Ryan Lee stick? What sticks the most?" Right? And there's the line, and you
Yeah.
say, "What would you do if you knew you could not fail?" Right?
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there thinking about how many things I've put on hold, or the things that I've not done because I was like, what if, or the anxiety I feel because I'm afraid of the what if that what I'm doing right now, right? But maybe unpack that for a
Sure.
second, and then what would you say to
Yeah.
people, listening now, like about that, like what would you say about do it
Yeah.
anyway, basically?
Yeah. It's a friend of mine. We were talking earlier about. He asked me how often do I feel motivated, and I said, well, I don't know that I feel motivated, but I am fueled by my mission. And so there are things that it's like, hey, you said yes to these things, so go and do it, regardless of how you feel about it. Obviously, I wrote this book, How to Work with Complicated People, and a government agency reached out to me and said, "Hey, can you come talk to 60 of our leaders? It's very complicated." And I said, "Oh, oops, I didn't know that. Oh yeah, complicated people might actually call you to help them navigate this." It's just like Yeah, go figure. What did you think was going to happen? I'm like, well, I don't know. I just, I was just trying to help the people I normally help. But you don't realize that the doors it'll open for more people that you can help. But it's and I speak for them next Wednesday. And I was telling my friend that he's like, so do you feel motivated? I said, no, I feel scared. But next Wednesday, they'll say, coming to the stage is Ryan Lee. And in that moment, you have to make a decision about if you will be ready or if you won't be. So, am I motivated? I don't know, I'm motivated, but I'm going, man, I want to give my best. I want to see how good I can get. And so I do wake up at 5 in the morning going, man, what if we did this? Or what if we tried this? Or what if we and I do have I wouldn't even call it a secret sauce, but I would say one of the things that has helped me be successful is that I'm not afraid to fail. I will post a video that sucks to find out if it actually does. And one of the videos that I hate, I felt like it didn't represent me well. I felt like it just, but I paid a guy to come and I thought, man, I paid all this money for this guy to film and make this video. I'm at least posting it, but I don't even like it. It got 5 million views. You actually are not that great of a judge of what's awesome until you actually try it. And so, how to overcomplicate people? It's a trial. Is this going to help people? I think it will, but it's only been out a week, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes. It's like I've shared these strategies with hundreds of thousands of people, but not millions. So there is a bit of a man. We're in the content space, and so we're constantly looking for things that we think are going to add value to people, and so we're always just trying things and paying attention to it. And so this idea of what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail, it removes limitations for people. And that's my heart. My heart is that people could live and work without all of these limitations, without feeling like they're constantly hitting a ceiling. I want to lift the lid off of what they think is possible. And when you remove failure off the table, it's amazing the ideas that people come up with. It's amazing the things people would try. Not just being in the NBA, but I mean things that they would pitch, jobs that they would apply for, initiatives that they would propose to a board. It's amazing the bravery and the courage that comes when we ask ourselves that question. And so that question alone has taken me pretty far in life because I'm not afraid to get ghosted. Ghost me. You know how many people haven't texted me back right now? Do you know how many people I'm waiting on to email me back? It's like, so what? Like, do you know how many people have responded? Do you know how many people have called? It's like you could focus on like, oh man, so like one company I'd love to speak for, I've never spoken for, is Nike, right? It's like, oh, I wear Nikes, big Nike guy, basketball guy. It's like, man, I'd love to speak for Nike. Man, I'd love to speak for Nike. I mean, I can sit around and go, man, Nike's never called. Nike's never called. Vans did. I'm speaking for Vans this summer. Okay, it's not disappointing, dude. It's like focus on where you have like think about the people that have called you, the people that are leaning on you for wisdom and insight and content. You can wish you were somewhere else, but how does that help you or anybody? And so it's like I don't go, oh man, I wish it was Nike over Vans. It's like no, it's like dude, well, one, if you paying me, I'm probably coming. So there's that. Number two, it's like dude, just serve the people that are in front of you as best you possibly can and let that take you where it goes. But you can get so like wrapped up emotionally and disappointed and oh this person didn't do this and I can't. It's like man, think about the people that would love to get a phone call from you right now. Think about the people that would be glad to see an email from you and begin to give your best to those people. And so I'm not afraid to shoot an email. I'm not afraid to make a video. I'm not afraid to hit post. We've got 3 or 4 posts scheduled out that um, I think a few of them suck, according to me, but I'm not that great of a judge. That's what It's like you won't know until you hit post. And that is my secret sauce, is that I'm willing to hit send. I'm willing to hit post. I don't care. Like, let's go. Like, let's go find out how good we can become. And you will not know until you're willing to try something. So that's the failure piece that I think, we have failed a lot. And I'll say this, there are some bomb videos that are amazing. That I'm like, oh, this is the moment. We're going viral today. Nothing. Nobody cares. It does not strike the chord you thought it was going to strike. So you can't go into it with this has to be viral or bust. It's like, no, create as much stuff as you possibly can that you believe will add value to other people. And sometimes what I think will add value to people doesn't. And sometimes I think, man, nobody needs this. And then it's like, no, everybody needs it. You're like, oh, well, now I know. So I just encourage people to be one of those people that are always willing to try something new.
That's a good way to end it. Well, Ryan, thanks so much for joining us today on the Prosper Brief. You're amazing. You're doing incredible work, and it's been a pleasure. So thanks for taking the afternoon to talk with us.
My pleasure. I appreciate you.
And to the listeners, thanks for, if you made it this long, thanks for joining us. And this is the Prosper Brief.